Hi guys, David Maxwell here again. I want to give you another quick update. I am now roughly 5 weeks from my flight to Vietnam to teach English abroad. So it's been a little bit of time since my last update, and I figured I would give you a fresh one. So over the past few weeks, a lot has been done. I have finished off my medical, dental, and vision appointments. I've ordered ample supplies of my medication and my contact lenses. I have completed all of the required documents for travel. I've booked my flight. I paid my deposit for my TESOL course to teach English abroad. I have done extensive research on where I will stay my first few days when I arrive in country before class begins. My particular class, as I've mentioned before, provides accommodations once the class begins, but I wanted to arrive a little bit early to give myself some time to acclimatize and see the main parts of the city before heading off to the course. So I've given myself 10 full days before class begins. Class starts on July 23rd, and I arrive on July 13th. So I'll have 10 days to acclimatize. But on the note of adjusting to the new time zone and everything, for me in my case in Vietnam, it's 12 hours ahead of the U.S., so that's a pretty big adjustment. So what I'm doing now for my last 5 weeks here is I'm setting an alarm and waking up 15 minutes early every day and trying to go to bed about 15 minutes early every night. So by the time I fly, I'll pretty much already be on the proper sleep schedule. That's going to make the transition that much easier. So let's see, what else have I taken care of? On the packing issue, I've decided to go with 2 bags, one carry-on with all of my really important critical items, my electronics, my identification, all my documentation, all of that will be in my carry-on. And then my second bag will be basically my clothing and non-essential items. And the reason for that is I've heard a lot of horror stories with checked baggage being lost or stolen or having items stolen out of it. So I'm going to try very hard to keep non-critical items in my checked luggage. On that note, just in case it is lost or stolen, I'm going to keep a change of clothes, a light change of clothes, in my carry-on. And that way, if there's a delay or it's lost, stolen, or whatever the case may be with my checked-in, at least I'll have one change of clothes to get me through until I can do some shopping once I arrive in Vietnam to replace some of the clothing. Also, I highly recommend that you get traveler's insurance. It's not that expensive. In my case, I want to say it's about $150 for some pretty good coverage for the first month. And, that includes lost or stolen or damaged items in my luggage. So that can quickly and easily be replaced. And that alone, should anything happen, would more than cover the cost of the insurance. But the insurance also covers things like delays in flight or cancellations in the trip or problems with the flight. Things such as hotel stays during delays. It covers medical emergencies. If something should happen to me, if I should get injured, a slip and fall, anything else, it covers those sorts of issues. So highly recommend that you look into getting the traveler's insurance, at least for a couple of weeks, covering your trip and your initial stay. So anyway, I've gotten pretty much everything that I wanted to get done by now, I've gotten done. And again, for those of you who haven't watched before, I made the decision to do this, to teach English abroad, roughly 5 months ago. And I gave myself about 3 months to do all the research and deciding where I would go and what school I would attend for certification, because you do need a certification in order to teach English abroad. And so I spent about 3 months doing all the research, and then I afforded myself about 3 months before my flight out, once I had made a decision on location and school. And I have found that that is just about right. So if you're considering doing this as a career change or a career path, then I highly recommend you afford yourself roughly the same amount of time, about 6 months from start to travel. And I say that because now, sitting here roughly, as I said, 5 weeks from my flight, I am all but done with everything that I needed to do. My FBI background check is done. I had to reorder a copy of my birth certificate. I had to order copies of my diplomas from universities, copies of transcripts from universities. I've ordered and received all or most of those things at this point. You have to go through the visa process. I got that taken care of. There's so many steps. Like I mentioned before, medically, I made appointments to have my vision checked, dental appointments, all sorts of medical evaluations, full testings, to make sure that I was going to be completely prepared to go beforehand. And a lot of those appointments require follow-ups, so you have to consider that when you're scheduling appointments like that, medical appointments, some doctors can be booked 3-4 weeks out, and then once you do see them, it may take a couple of weeks to get results, and then it may take a couple more weeks before they're ready to see you again for a follow-up. So starting in advance is definitely a good thing. It's proved to be very good for me. I'm so thankful that I made that decision because, as I've said, now I am fully ready to go. I've even had time to research what to bring with me on the trip. I am packing light so that it's easier to be portable. Of course, I had to do research into, with my particular flight, bag allotment, size, dimensions, weight, things of that nature, and it's given me time to, like I say, research and decide on what I'm going to bring, and not only to do that, but to actually pack those items, check the weight ahead of time, and know whether or not I'm within the limits. So I am pretty much completely ready at this point, and that's a great feeling. Starting to get really excited. About the last thing that I have left to do is make my balance payment to the school that I'll be attending for my TESOL certification. I've already taken care of as well as everything else I've mentioned, I've taken care of my financial issues. I ended up having to transfer my direct deposits to a different banking institution. I set up automatic payments for all of my pre-existing bills so that I wouldn't have to worry about that while I'm abroad. I changed all of my accounts to paperless so that I wouldn't have to deal with the mail issue of me being abroad. I updated all of my contact information for all of the accounts that I'll need to be dealing with. I updated all of my websites to have the password set so that I can easily access all of those accounts when abroad from my laptop via Wi-Fi. So yeah, I mean, I've done so much in the last couple of months that it's sort of mind-boggling. But if you did not start ahead of time, if you didn't give yourself ample time, I can see how very easily you could fall behind before you travel and be in a situation where you're either scrambling before you leave, or you leave without things being finished and wind up having to jump through hoops to get those things finished once you're in whatever foreign country you're traveling to. And that can be quite difficult. So also I'm going to mention apostolizing. I've learned that many countries like Vietnam require that your official documents be apostolized, which is, for those of you who don't know, a level higher than a notary certification. It's usually provided by a government entity like a consulate or an embassy, and it's usually a little bit more pricey, but it's accepted by countries that accept the Hague Convention of, I think, 1966 or whatever it was. But again, for example, in Vietnam, they won't accept, when you go for employment, any of the documents, any of your transcripts, diplomas, FBI background check, whatever, unless those documents have been apostolized. Now, in my case, I have not yet done that in country. That's one of the things I'm still working towards finishing over the next 5 weeks. But you can do that once you get overseas. However, if you go that route, it can be a bit cumbersome and it may be more expensive. You may have to travel to quite a ways to an embassy or a consulate, and you may have to wait in long lines. You may have to pay higher fees to get that apostolization done on your official documents. So if you have the resources and you plan ahead and you have the time, I think it's much better to get those things taken care of before you ever travel. So anyway, yeah, in a nutshell, here I am 5 weeks out. With all that remains is apostolizing my documents and making my final balance payment on my TESOL course. And that feels, as I told you before, it feels pretty darn good. Now I can focus on being excited. I'm beginning to research teaching English. There are a lot of websites out there that have, for example, free flashcards or free TESOL or TEFL certification manuals. There are a lot of sites that have free lesson plans for different age ranges of English learners, foreign English learners. So right now I get to start to work on gathering and reviewing as many of those as I can, which just means I'm going to be that much more prepared when I get to Vietnam. I definitely want to be ahead of the curve, and I want to be prepared. So one of the other things that I plan to do here in the very near future before I leave is create my own demo course video. So after doing some studying, I'm going to print out and use some of those flashcards and lesson plans and come up with a pre-made, personalized demo class, since when you apply for a position as a teacher abroad, they very often want to see you perform a demo class, a demonstration class. So to have that already done, practiced, ready to go, again, will put me a step ahead of the crowd and give me a better shot at gaining employment. So anyway, to wrap things up with this video, again, I'm almost there. I'm excited. I can't wait to share with you the experience. I will be taking video on my flight. I'll be taking video at immigrations once I arrive, so that you can see what that process looks like and what obstacles I may or may not run into. And as I look for a hostel or a hotel once I arrive, I'll take you through that process in video, so you get to see that as well, and show you around my accommodations so you can get a feel for it. Yeah, in a nutshell, I'm going to share with you every last thing I can possibly share with you about this entire process from beginning to end. So I hope it helps, and I hope that if you're thinking about teaching English abroad, that something that I say is going to be something that you may have missed otherwise, because that's my ultimate goal, is to help others. And even if one of you finds something that you didn't realize at first that makes a positive difference for you, then all of these videos are worth the effort. So thanks for watching, guys. I look forward to talking to you soon, and we'll see you next time.